Karen 9 hung beneath a pale blue star like a forgotten piece of machinery, drifting at the edge of civilization. The prison planet had no oceans, no forests, and no cities worth mentioning. Only endless gray plains, magnetic storms, and fortress towers built from black alloy that could withstand orbital bombardment. Ethan Ward stood inside Security Tower 4, staring through a reinforced window as dust rolled across the wasteland outside. "Anything exciting today?" asked Mason, another guard. Ethan glanced at the monitor wall. One prisoner tried to marry a vending machine. Mason nodded thoughtfully. "Did the vending machine say yes?" "It dispensed a snack." "That's basically a proposal." The two men laughed quietly. Most days on Karen 9 were painfully boring. Dangerous criminals filled the cells, but after enough years, even notorious pirates, smugglers, and warlords became routine paperwork. Then the alarm started. A deep metallic siren echoed through the tower. Every screen switched to red. Incoming prisoner transfer. Level 7 clearance. Military escort required. Ethan frowned. Level 7 prisoners rarely came here. Outside, a transport shuttle descended through the dusty atmosphere. Behind it flew 6 armed escort fighters. "That's a prisoner," Mason muttered, "or somebody accidentally arrested an entire government." The shuttle landed inside the armored reception zone. Minutes later, Ethan joined the security detail. The cargo ramp lowered. Soldiers emerged first, then more soldiers, then even more soldiers. By the time the prisoner appeared, nearly 30 armed troops surrounded her. She was an alien woman. At first glance, she looked almost human. Almost. Her ears were long and elegant, extending through silver hair that rested against her shoulders. Her features were calm, refined, and strangely graceful despite the prison restraints around her wrists. She wore a plain, gray detention suit. No jewelry, no insignia, no rank markings. Yet something about her felt completely out of place. The soldiers looked nervous, not afraid of an attack, afraid of her. Ethan noticed it immediately. One officer avoided making eye contact entirely. Another stood unnaturally straight whenever she looked in his direction. The woman herself seemed unconcerned, as though being escorted into one of the most secure prisons in the galaxy was a minor inconvenience. The lead commander handed over a data tablet. "Prisoner designation LX-771. Ethan scanned the file. Charges filled several pages. Political assassination, smuggling, treason, conspiracy, economic sabotage. By the end of the list, Ethan was surprised the woman hadn't also been blamed for bad weather. "Danger rating?" he asked. "Maximum." "She doesn't look maximum." The commander gave him a cold look. Looks can be deceptive. The woman suddenly spoke. "That's true." Her voice was calm, almost amused. She glanced at Ethan. "For example, you look intelligent." Several nearby soldiers froze. Ethan blinked, then laughed. "That's the nicest insult I've received all month." For the first time, a faint smile appeared on her face. The commander clearly disliked the exchange. "Move the prisoner." The escort continued through the prison quarters. As Ethan walked beside them, he kept observing her. Everything about her seemed wrong. Not criminal wrong. Different wrong. The way she walked, the way she held her shoulders, the way she calmly examined every corridor. It reminded him of someone inspecting property rather than entering captivity. Hours later, she was assigned to cell 217. Most guards quickly lost interest. To them, she was simply another criminal. By evening, the jokes had already begun. Maybe she assassinated someone with manners. "Careful," another guard said. "She might politely destroy the galaxy." Laughter spread through the break room. Ethan chuckled along with them. Yet something continued bothering him. Late that night, he reviewed the transfer footage again, frame by frame, slowly. Then he paused. His eyes narrowed. There, along the edge of her sleeve, almost invisible, a tiny embroidered pattern. Most people would never notice it. Ethan did. Years ago, during military intelligence training, he had studied hundreds of alien governments, royal symbols, dynasties, ancient houses. The pattern on that sleeve looked remarkably familiar. His heart beat faster. "No," he whispered. "It couldn't be." The idea was absurd, completely impossible. impossible. Yet the more he stared at the symbol, the less impossible it seemed. Far below the tower, inside cell 217, the alien woman sat quietly on the edge of her bunk, her golden eyes lifted toward the security camera. For a brief moment, she smiled. Not the smile of a defeated prisoner, the smile of someone waiting. And for the first time in many years, Ethan Ward felt that something enormous had just entered Karen 9. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Security Tower 4 with a cup of synthetic coffee that tasted suspiciously like melted plastic. The machine claimed it was premium roast from the agricultural moons of Vega. Ethan strongly suspected the machine had never met a coffee bean in its life. The prison's artificial sunrise lamps slowly illuminated the corridors while guards changed shifts and maintenance drones floated overhead. Normally, Ethan would have forgotten about a prisoner after a single day. Not this one. The image of the embroidered symbol remained stuck in his mind. During his lunch break, he quietly accessed the prison archive. Thousands of historical records filled the database. He entered several search parameters: royal houses, ancient empires, political dynasties, alien noble families. The results appeared one after another. None matched. Ethan frowned. Then he expanded the search to include archives older than 200 years. A single file appeared. His pulse quickened. The symbol belonged to the House of Velaria, one of the oldest royal bloodlines in the known galaxy. Ethan leaned back in his chair. No way. The Valerian Empire covered dozens of star systems. Its rulers were among the most powerful figures alive. The current monarch was Queen Lyra, at least according to official records. Yet 6 months ago, reports about the queen had become strangely scarce. Public appearances stopped. Official broadcasts became less frequent. Rumors had spread, but no one paid much attention. Powerful governments always hid things. Still, why would a symbol belonging to Valerian royalty appear on a prisoner's uniform? The answer made no sense. A notification interrupted his thoughts. Visitor arrival. Diplomatic inspection. That was unusual. Karen 9 rarely received diplomats. The prison was too unpleasant for anyone important to visit voluntarily. Ethan joined the security team assigned to escort the visitors. 3 sleek shuttles landed in the reception zone. Several well-dressed officials emerged. Their clothing displayed insignias from different systems: trade representatives, political advisors, government observers. The group toured the facility under heavy security. Everything proceeded normally until they reached cell block 7. Cell 217. The woman's cell. Ethan watched carefully. The visitors stopped. Only for a second, but they stopped. The alien woman sat quietly on her bunk. The moment one elderly diplomat saw her, his face lost all color. For a brief instant, he lowered his head, almost like a bow. Then he immediately straightened. Ethan noticed. The diplomat noticed Ethan noticing. Both men pretended nothing had happened. The inspection continued. By the end of the tour, the elderly diplomat looked eager to leave. Very eager, suspiciously eager. Back in the security office, Mason stretched in his chair. Well, that was boring. You didn't notice anything strange? Mason looked confused. We live on a prison planet. Strange is our business model. Before Ethan could reply, another alert appeared. Mandatory genetic verification. Cell block 7. Prisoner LX-771. The prison's central scanner drone floated toward the cell. The machine was an old model equipped with artificial intelligence. Not particularly intelligent, according to most guards. Several claimed it once arrested a cleaning robot for suspicious mopping behavior. The drone entered cell 217. A holographic scanner activated. Blue light swept across the woman. Data streamed across nearby monitors. For several seconds, everything appeared normal. Then sparks erupted from the drone. The machine froze. Its sensors widened. A robotic voice echoed through the corridor. Identity confirmed. The drone paused, then spoke again. Your Majesty. Silence. Every guard turned toward the machine. The drone continued. Welcome back, Your Majesty. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The woman remained perfectly calm. The drone rotated toward her. Royal protocol initiated. Then it suddenly projected a golden ceremonial banner above its head. A trumpet fanfare blasted through its speakers. Several prisoners burst out laughing. One guard dropped his tablet. Mason stared in disbelief. What in the stars is it doing? The drone continued. Long live Queen! Its speakers exploded. Smoke poured from the machine. The drone spun wildly in circles, crashed into a wall, declared war on a vending machine, then shut down completely. The corridor erupted into chaos. Prisoners laughed so hard they could barely stand. One inmate shouted, "The robot knows something!" Another yelled, "Promote the robot!" Even Ethan struggled not to laugh. Yet beneath the humor, cold realization settled into his chest. The machine had not malfunctioned randomly. It had scanned her genetic profile. It had recognized her. The woman slowly looked toward Ethan through the energy barrier. Their eyes met. Golden eyes. Calm eyes. Eyes that seemed to know exactly what he was thinking. Then she smiled faintly, not confirming anything, not denying anything, just smiling. And somehow that smile was more unsettling than any answer. Far beyond Karen 9, hidden among the stars, entire worlds were already beginning to fracture under growing political unrest. And for the first time, Ethan started to wonder if the prisoner in cell 217 was not merely connected to those events. Perhaps she was the reason they existed at all. 3 days passed after the scanner incident. Officially, the prison administration declared the event a technical malfunction. Unofficially, it became the funniest story on Karen 9. Someone edited security footage and added dramatic music to the moment the drone announced, "Your Majesty." The recording spread through the prison network before being deleted. Unfortunately for the administration, it had already been copied thousands of times. Even the prisoners were still joking about it. One inmate bowed whenever a maintenance robot passed. Another demanded royal taxes be lowered. A third insisted that vending machines should be granted noble titles because the scanner drone had challenged one to combat. The prison had never been particularly dignified. Now, it was even less so. Ethan tried to focus on work, but his attention kept returning to cell 217. The evidence was growing. The royal symbol, the frightened diplomat, the genetic scanner. None of it proved anything by itself. Together, however, the pieces formed a picture he could no longer ignore. Late one evening, he volunteered for corridor patrol. The route conveniently included cell block 7. As he approached cell 217, he found the alien woman sitting beside the energy barrier. A data screen rested on her lap. She appeared to be reading. That alone was unusual. Most prisoners watched entertainment feeds or slept. She was studying something, ancient star maps. Ethan recognized them immediately. "Interesting choice." Without looking up, she answered, "Most people prefer entertainment. Most people aren't studying navigation routes from 400 years ago." A faint smile appeared on her face. "History tends to explain the present. Does it explain why a prison scanner called you, Your Majesty?" Now she looked up. Golden eyes met his. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then she returned her attention to the screen. "Machines make mistakes." Ethan folded his arms. "That machine also declared war on a vending machine. A tragic political decision." Despite himself, Ethan laughed. The woman seemed pleased by this. For the next few minutes, they exchanged casual conversation. Nothing important. Food, weather systems, prison routines. Yet Ethan noticed something strange. Whenever political subjects appeared, she displayed knowledge that should have been impossible. She knew the names of governors from distant systems, trade routes hidden from public databases, military alliances that technically did not exist. Every answer raised new questions. Eventually, Ethan pointed at the star map. "Why study that route?" She hesitated, only briefly. "Because millions once depended on it." The answer sounded personal, far too personal. Before he could ask more, alarms suddenly echoed through the prison. News alerts appeared across corridor displays. "Emergency Galactic Bulletin." Ethan activated the nearest screen. a holographic reporter materialized. Behind her floated images of warships. The Arcturus Coalition has officially withdrawn from the Galactic Accord. The reporter continued speaking. More systems were leaving. Trade agreements were collapsing. Border conflicts were increasing. Entire sectors were entering political uncertainty. Even Ethan understood the significance. The galaxy was becoming unstable, very unstable. The woman quietly watched the report. Something changed in her expression. For the first time, genuine sadness appeared. Not fear, not anger, sadness, as though she had seen this coming long ago. The broadcast ended. Silence returned. "You seem concerned," Ethan said. She continued watching the dark screen. "There are many people who will suffer if this continues." The statement sounded less like an observation and more like responsibility. Responsibility for billions. Ethan felt another piece of the puzzle slide into place. A normal criminal would not react that way. A ruler might. The following day brought another surprise. While reviewing archived government communications, Ethan discovered that every public appearance of Queen Lyra had stopped exactly 6 months ago. Official announcements claimed she was handling private diplomatic matters. Yet, there were no images, no speeches, no appearances, nothing, almost as though she had vanished. That night, Ethan found himself standing outside cell 217 again. The woman was looking through the small window toward the distant stars. Karen 9's atmosphere distorted the light, turning distant suns into shimmering blue streaks. "You know," Ethan said, "you're either the most suspicious prisoner I've ever met or the most innocent." She glanced toward him. "Can I not be both?" "That sounds like something a politician would say." Her smile widened slightly. "Perhaps." Ethan leaned against the wall. For the first time, he stopped treating the possibility as absurd. The thought felt dangerous and strangely believable. If the woman in cell 217 truly was Queen Lyra, then someone powerful had placed her here. Someone powerful wanted her forgotten. And if Ethan kept asking questions, that same someone might eventually notice him. Yet, as he looked into those calm, golden eyes, he realized something else. The woman wasn't afraid of being imprisoned. She wasn't afraid of criminals. She wasn't afraid of the prison itself. She was waiting for something or someone. And deep in his instincts, Ethan began to suspect that whatever was coming to Karen 9 would change far more than a single prisoner's fate. It might change the fate of the entire galaxy. The following week brought visitors, not ordinary visitors. The moment Ethan saw their arrival authorization codes, he knew something was different. The clearance level was absurdly high, higher than military inspectors, higher than intelligence auditors. The group arrived aboard a sleek black diplomatic cruiser that descended through Karen 9's gray skies like a blade cutting through smoke. 4 individuals emerged. All wore identical dark uniforms. No insignias, no government symbols, no names. That alone was suspicious. Anyone important usually enjoyed displaying how important they were. These people seemed interested in the opposite. Ethan watched from the security control room as the visitors entered the prison. The oldest of them, a tall man with silver cybernetic eyes, smiled constantly. The smile never reached his eyes. Those eyes remained cold, calculating, predatory. "Those people make me nervous," Mason muttered beside him. "Why?" "They look like the kind of people who read contracts for fun." Ethan laughed. "Fair point." The visitors spent several hours touring the facility. Everything appeared routine. Yet Ethan noticed a pattern. They repeatedly asked questions about only one prisoner. Cell 217, the alien woman. They tried to sound casual. They failed. Eventually, the group reached cell block 7. Ethan accompanied them as part of security protocol. The corridor felt strangely quiet. The woman sat calmly on her bunk as usual. Silver hair rested against her shoulders. Her long ears twitched slightly when the visitors approached. For the briefest moment, something unusual happened. The smiling man stopped smiling. The alien woman looked directly at him. Neither spoke. Yet the tension between them felt immediate, ancient, personal. Then the moment passed. The smile returned. The inspection continued. But Ethan noticed something else. The woman had become completely still, not frightened, alert, like a soldier spotting danger. Hours later, the visitors finally departed. Most guards celebrated. Nobody enjoyed surprise inspections. By evening, the prison returned to normal, or at least it appeared to. Ethan was finishing paperwork when he noticed an irregularity in the security network. One of the surveillance nodes near cell block 7 had been remotely accessed. His frown deepened. Only authorized personnel could do that. He followed the digital trail. The access originated from a maintenance corridor, a corridor nobody should have been using. Curiosity overcame caution. Ethan quietly made his way through the dim passageways. The deeper he went, the fewer cameras existed. Eventually, he heard voices, 2 men, whispering. Ethan stopped around a corner. Cannot remain alive. His heartbeat quickened. The order is final. Another voice answered. What about the guard? A pause followed. Unimportant. The first man laughed softly. If he interferes, eliminate him too. Coldness spread through Ethan's chest. The voices continued. The accident must happen within the week. No witnesses. No mistakes. Then footsteps approached. Ethan immediately retreated into a side passage. Seconds later, 2 figures emerged, members of the inspection team. They walked past without noticing him. Only after they disappeared did Ethan finally breathe again. His mind raced. Accident. Eliminate. Remain alive. There was no misunderstanding possible. Someone wanted the prisoner dead. Not transferred. Not questioned. Dead. The realization followed him all night. By morning, he could no longer ignore it. Late in the evening, he stood outside cell 217 once again. The woman was reading, a habit she seemed to enjoy. Someone is trying to kill you. The words came out without warning. For several seconds, she remained silent. Then she slowly closed the data screen. I know. Ethan blinked. You know? I suspected. That answer somehow frustrated him. You suspected? Her expression remained calm. People rarely imprison someone this carefully unless they fear what that person knows. Ethan stared at her. The energy barrier hummed softly between them. The prison suddenly felt much smaller. The galaxy much larger, and the mystery far more dangerous. Who are you? He asked quietly. For the first time since her arrival, the woman looked tired. Not physically tired, burdened, like someone carrying the weight of entire worlds. She stood and stepped closer to the barrier. Golden eyes met his. You already know. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Neither spoke for several seconds. Outside the prison walls, magnetic storms rolled across the wasteland. Inside cell 217, the silence seemed louder than the storms. Finally, the woman exhaled slowly. My name is Lyra. The name alone sent a chill through him. Not because of what she said, because of how she said it, not introducing herself, confirming something. I am Lyra of Velaria. The corridor seemed to freeze. The distant hum of prison machinery faded. For a moment, Ethan simply stared. The missing queen, the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The woman everyone believed was governing from her palace. The woman whose disappearance had been hidden from billions. She stood only a few feet away, wearing a prison uniform, locked inside a cell, and someone powerful enough to reshape governments wanted her erased forever. A faint smile touched her lips. Judging by your face, she said, you were expecting better accommodations for a queen. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. And in that moment, he realized his life had just become unimaginably complicated. For 2 days after Lyra revealed the truth, Ethan barely slept. Every corridor seemed different now. Every security camera, every guard, every official report. He had spent years believing Karen 9 was simply a prison. Now it felt like the center of a conspiracy large enough to shake the galaxy. The strangest part was that Lyra herself appeared completely calm. While Ethan worried about assassins, political coups, and galactic collapse, the Queen spent part of her mornings reading historical archives and criticizing prison food. On one occasion, Ethan delivered her meal tray and found her staring suspiciously at a bowl of gray paste. What is it this time? She pointed at the bowl. I believe it's trying to communicate. It's nutritional protein. It blinked. It did not blink. It absolutely blinked. Ethan looked down. The paste remained motionless. A second later, a trapped air bubble popped. Lyra immediately folded her arms. There, Ethan burst out laughing. The queen of a galactic empire looked genuinely offended by prison food. The moment of humor faded when Ethan entered the security archives later that evening. Using access codes he technically wasn't supposed to possess, he continued investigating the individuals who had visited Karen 9. The results were disturbing. Several identities appeared incomplete. Entire sections of their records had been erased. Others connected to corporations, military contractors, and political committees spread across dozens of systems. At first, the information seemed unrelated. Then patterns emerged, names repeated, accounts overlapped, funding networks crossed paths. The deeper Ethan looked, the uglier the picture became. Someone had spent years building influence across the galaxy. Not one person, a group, a powerful one. And many of the connections eventually led toward Velaria, toward Lyra's empire, toward the people who should have been serving her. Hours later, he returned to Cell 217, carrying a concealed data pad. The corridor was empty. Only the hum of the energy barrier broke the silence. Lyra looked up when he approached. "You found something." It wasn't a question. Ethan still found it unsettling how often she guessed correctly. He activated the display. Names appeared, financial records, encrypted transfers, government officials, military commanders, several senators. Lyra studied them quietly. As she read, her expression gradually hardened, not with surprise, with recognition. "You know them," Ethan said. Unfortunately, she touched one of the names. This man once attended state dinners. Another. He advised trade negotiations. Another. He swore loyalty to the crown. The bitterness in her voice was impossible to miss. For the first time, Ethan understood something important. This was not merely political betrayal. These had once been people she trusted, people she knew, people who had helped build her government. Now they appeared connected to the conspiracy that imprisoned her. The realization hung heavily between them. Then Lyra unexpectedly pointed at another file. Ethan frowned. "What? He always stole desserts." "What?" "The senator," she pointed again. "He stole desserts at every formal banquet." Ethan stared. "You're identifying traitors and that's your observation?" He was very committed to it. Despite himself, Ethan laughed. Even Lyra smiled. For a brief moment, the crushing weight of the situation eased. Then the prison lights flickered. Both noticed immediately. The illumination returned a second later, then flickered again. Ethan's smile vanished. That wasn't normal. His communicator activated. "Security teams report to Level 3 immediately." Static followed, then silence. A second message arrived. "Power fluctuations detected." Another flicker rolled through the corridor. Somewhere in the prison, alarms briefly activated before cutting off. Lyra slowly stood. Golden eyes focused toward the ceiling, listening, waiting. "What is it?" Ethan asked. She didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "Someone is testing the systems." A chill ran through him. The same conclusion had already formed in his mind. These weren't random failures. Someone was probing defenses, learning response times, searching for weaknesses, preparing. For what? Ethan wasn't sure. But he doubted it would be pleasant. He checked the security network. Multiple camera feeds had gone offline. Maintenance logs showed unexplained access requests. Several internal doors had opened without authorization, one by one, throughout the facility. Like pieces being positioned on a game board, far beyond Karen 9, entire sectors continued sliding toward instability. Border skirmishes were increasing, trade routes were collapsing, governments were choosing sides, and hidden within one forgotten prison, a queen sat inside a cell while her enemies prepared their next move. Ethan looked at Lyra. The queen looked back. No fear existed in her eyes, only determination. And suddenly, Ethan understood something. The conspirators had made an enormous mistake. They believed they had locked away a prisoner. They had actually imprisoned the most dangerous obstacle standing between them and power. The question was not whether they would strike again. The question was how soon. And judging by the growing disturbances throughout the prison, the answer was approaching faster than either of them liked. The attack began during the artificial night cycle. Karen 9 never truly slept. Machines hummed, security drones patrolled, energy barriers glowed inside dark corridors. Yet shortly after midnight, every light in Cell Block 7 suddenly went dark. For 1 second, the prison vanished into complete blackness. Then emergency systems activated. Red warning lights flooded the corridors. Alarms erupted everywhere. Ethan was already running before his communicator finished speaking. Security breach detected. Multiple containment failures. Riot conditions spreading. The words echoed throughout the facility. A moment later, another message appeared. Then another. Then another. Entire sections of the prison were failing simultaneously. Too many failures. Too coordinated. This wasn't an accident. This was war. Ethan reached cell 217. The energy barrier protecting Lyra's cell had already collapsed. The Queen stood calmly beside the open doorway. Around her, security systems flickered erratically. "Tell me you didn't cause this," Ethan said. Lyra tilted her head. "Do I look like someone who would organize a prison riot?" At that exact moment, an explosion shook the corridor. Metal panels crashed from the ceiling. Ethan sighed. "Honestly, at this point, I don't know." Prisoners flooded nearby hallways. Some were escaping. Others were simply following the crowd. One inmate sprinted past carrying 3 stolen vending machine doors. Another wore a traffic cone on his head and declared himself emperor of something. Nobody knew what. Even the riot seemed confused. Yet, beneath the chaos, Ethan recognized the real objective. Armed figures were moving towards Cell Block 7, not prisoners, professionals, the same people who had visited the prison weeks earlier. Assassins. The conspiracy had finally made its move. "They're coming for you," Ethan said. Lyra nodded. "I know." A security locker nearby had been damaged during the blackout. Ethan forced it open. Inside rested emergency equipment, plasma pistols, shield generators, combat drones. He tossed a weapon toward Lyra. She caught it effortlessly. "Please tell me you know how to use that." The Queen looked mildly offended. "I commanded 3 interstellar fleets." "Good. Just checking." The first attackers appeared seconds later. Black armor, military-grade weapons. No identifying insignias. The corridor erupted into plasma fire. Ethan dove behind cover. Lyra moved with astonishing speed. Gone was the quiet prisoner from cell 217. Gone was the patient woman who argued with prison food. Now Ethan finally saw the ruler who had once commanded empires. Every movement was precise, efficient, controlled. The attackers clearly expected a prisoner. Instead, they encountered a queen. The battle pushed deeper into the prison. Throughout the facility, riots continued spreading. Security systems malfunctioned. Containment fields failed. Entire cell blocks descended into chaos. Yet someone was directing everything. The conspiracy wanted confusion. Confusion created opportunities. Opportunities created assassinations. As Ethan and Lyra moved through a maintenance sector, they reached the central communications hub. Several dead technicians lay nearby. The control room had already been seized. More assassins waited inside. A fierce firefight followed. Explosions illuminated walls covered in holographic displays. Combat drones collided in midair. One maintenance robot accidentally joined the battle. Unfortunately, it attacked a vending machine. "Why does that keep happening?" Ethan shouted. "Perhaps they hold grudges," Lyra replied. Even during a firefight, she somehow sounded perfectly serious. Minutes later, they secured the communications center. Ethan sealed the entrance. For the first time all night, silence returned. Only heavy breathing filled the room. Then Lyra approached one of the communication terminals. Her fingers moved rapidly across holographic controls. Ancient authorization codes appeared. Military channels opened. Government networks activated. Encrypted systems responded instantly. The terminal suddenly displayed a message. "Royal authentication accepted." Ethan stared. Then another message appeared. "Identity verified. Queen Lyra of Velaria." For several seconds, neither spoke. The system had recognized her. Across dozens of connected networks, dormant protocols awakened. Emergency signals began transmitting automatically. Ancient contingency plans created centuries earlier by the Valerian crown suddenly activated. Far beyond Karen 9, hidden receivers started receiving the same message. "The Queen lives. The Queen lives. The Queen lives." Lyra slowly stepped back from the terminal. Her golden eyes remained fixed on the screen. Somewhere among the stars, loyal citizens, soldiers, admirals, and governors would soon receive that signal. People who believed she was dead. People who had waited 6 months without answers. People who might finally act. A warning siren suddenly interrupted the moment. Long-range sensors had detected something. Ships, lots of ships. Ethan moved toward the display. His eyes widened. Dozens of hyperspace signatures were appearing near Karen 9, then hundreds. Entire fleets. Some belonged to the conspirators. Others carried Valerian identification codes. The signal had worked. The galaxy had heard. And now every major player was rushing toward the prison world. Karen 9 was no longer an isolated prison. It had become the center of a storm large enough to reshape the stars themselves. And the final battle was coming. The skies above Karen 9 burned with light. From the surface, Ethan watched hundreds of warships emerge from hyperspace. Vast fleets filled the darkness between the stars. Blue engine trails stretched across the heavens like glowing rivers. For years, Karen 9 had been forgotten by the galaxy. Now, the galaxy had come to it. Inside the prison's central command center, emergency displays flashed endlessly. Reports poured in from every direction. Valerian loyalist fleets, independent systems, conspirator warships, government observers. The balance of power was shifting by the minute. Ethan stood beside Lyra as orbital battle maps expanded across a massive holographic display. The Queen studied the incoming data calmly, not because the situation was simple, because she had spent her entire life carrying responsibility for billions. At last, Ethan understood that. For months, she had endured imprisonment, humiliation, and isolation without breaking. Not because she was fearless, because countless people depended on her remaining strong. Suddenly, a transmission request appeared. Priority level, royal. Lyra accepted it. A holographic image materialized above the console. Several Valerian admirals appeared. The moment they saw her, silence filled the room. One by one, hardened military commanders lowered their heads. Some looked relieved. Others looked close to tears. "Your Majesty," one admiral whispered. For the first time in 6 months, the Empire had proof that its queen lived. Lyra's expression softened. "I'm glad to see you all survived." A nervous laugh spread through the channel. The tension eased immediately. Even now, she was reassuring them, not the other way around. Minutes later, the evidence Ethan had gathered was transmitted across the galaxy. Hidden financial networks, secret communications, records of the coup, everything. Billions watched as the truth emerged. Governors abandoned the conspiracy. Military units switched allegiance. Corporate supporters rushed to deny involvement. Several conspirators attempted to flee. Most failed. The political structure they had spent years building collapsed within hours. Not because of weapons, because the truth had finally become impossible to hide. The remaining conspirator fleet surrendered shortly after. The battle ended almost as quickly as it had begun, and for the first time in months, the galaxy began moving away from chaos instead of toward it. 3 months later, Ethan found himself standing in a place far stranger than any prison. The Imperial Palace of Velaria. The enormous structure floated above a shining ocean beneath twin suns. Towering crystal spires reflected golden light across the sky. Thousands had gathered for the restoration ceremony. Diplomats, admirals, governors, citizens, everywhere Ethan looked, people bowed respectfully toward Lyra. The queen no longer wore a prison uniform. Silver hair flowed across elegant royal attire. A delicate crown rested above her long ears. She looked exactly as a queen should, which somehow made Ethan's memories of Cell 217 feel even more ridiculous. The ceremony concluded with thunderous applause. Then an official stepped forward, carrying a decorated case. Ethan relaxed. Finally, a medal, a handshake, maybe a speech. Then he could go home. The official opened the case. Inside was not a medal. It was a noble title, a very important noble title. Ethan stared. The crowd applauded. He stared harder. The crowd applauded louder. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered. "It is not," Lyra replied. "You are making me nobility. You helped save an empire. I was trying to survive. That too." Laughter spread through the nearby dignitaries. Ethan shook his head. Months ago, he had been an ordinary prison guard trying to avoid paperwork. Now entire fleets knew his name. The transformation felt absurd, yet he realized he had changed. Once he avoided risks, avoided responsibility, avoided difficult choices. Then he had seen the truth and chosen to act despite the danger. For the first time in his life, he understood that courage was not the absence of fear. It was moving forward anyway. As the celebration continued, a familiar maintenance drone floated through the palace courtyard. Someone had repaired the infamous scanner drone. The machine approached Lyra. Its speakers crackled. "Your Majesty detected." The crowd smiled. Then the drone turned toward Ethan. "Important human detected." A pause followed. The machine processed something. "Potentially confused noble detected." The entire courtyard erupted into laughter. Even Lyra laughed openly. For a moment, Ethan simply stood there beneath the warm sunlight, listening to the laughter of people who no longer feared the future. The conspiracy was gone. The empire was healing. The queen had reclaimed her throne. And the prison guard who had noticed a tiny royal symbol on a prison uniform had helped change the course of history. Above them, peaceful starships crossed the bright sky. Beyond them, an entire galaxy waited for tomorrow. This time, however, tomorrow felt full of hope. And that was more than enough.